Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the last interview that I did. And if you are unable to join me and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. Today's episode is a little different as it was recorded at a podcast workshop that I was attending. I'd never met my guest until minutes before we recorded. She knew one of the attendees and came to visit, and that attendee introduced me and suggested we record together. So we headed to a podcast room and did the interview on the fly. So let me introduce my guest today before getting into our chat. Marcy is a soul-led life and business coach, guiding women who are stuck and conflicted in their current roles to gain deep trust in themselves and create inspired action forward with clarity and self-connection. With over 9 years coaching experience in sales and marketing, Marcy noticed the hundreds of women she was mentoring come up on blocks beyond the strategies. Something more was holding them back from achieving their full potential. During this time, Marcy experienced a devastating divorce, leading her to a path of self-growth and understanding. Through this growth journey, she found herself yearning for more and unfulfilled in her career, deeply desiring renewed energy and purpose in her life, but stuck and stagnant for years, her life on autopilot in the comfort and monotony she had grown accustomed to. It wasn't until the sudden loss of her brother when a profound spiritual experience finally helped her understand that the time is now to take action and find daily joy. Marcy helps her clients realize that you don't have to give up on all you've worked for to find fulfillment. You can start where you are with what you have and MacGyver your life. Marcy now lives her dream life in Mexico with her son. Now to the recording of our chat. So today is a little bit different. I am going to have to read a bio and my intro and add it to this because I'm actually at a podcast workshop and I literally just met Marcy here about half an hour ago. And we decided to pop into one of the recording studios and just do a quick interview. And I'm going to share that with you. So it's a little bit different. We get to be in the same room together even. But so I'm really excited to go ahead and do this interview. I hope you find it helpful and interesting and that the different format is not a problem. So before I get started, actually, I want to just ask you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself. How did you even get into doing what you're doing now?
So I come from a long background, about 9 years, 9.5 in working in small business as an entrepreneur, like so many of you. And what I found is that a lot of the women that I was working with, there was something behind the scenes going on that was hindering them from finding their true success and their full potential. And I became at the same time very interested in personal development, of course, and even spiritual development, which has guided me to the path of psychosynthesis life coaching, which is a modality where we combine both psychological aspects and spiritual aspects and combine them together to help women to fully express the truth of who they are.
Great. So thanks for that little introduction. And I will read your full bio too when I get that information ahead of time too. So we're just going to have a conversation. And one of the things that I thought of as I just met her and found out what she did was talking about kind of the mental blocks we often have as entrepreneurs. We may want to be successful, but then there's actually something holding us back. So I wanted to just even open up with what can you give in terms of a tip for someone who maybe doesn't even realize that they have any mental issues right now holding them back? What can they do to even bring that to the surface, maybe to be able to overcome those challenges?
Well, that's a great question. And I think that if someone doesn't have the awareness, it's going to manifest out in different ways. And so if you notice yourself having roadblocks in your business, constantly coming up against, hardships, even though you've, done work around it, there might be something else to explore.
Mhm.
And that might be the very moment where working on more of the, let's call it, back end of
Right.
your business, your mental state and spiritual state and all of that might come into play and be helpful.
Because I know we all have issues, right? Growing up, we may have had some things that affect us, or maybe as entrepreneurs. Like I even know for myself, I had, when I was kind of newer in business, I had somebody who basically was a CPA.
Mhm.
I was taking over bookkeeping for a client whose their CPA had passed away. And
Mhm.
so this current CPA had like basically taken over, and he asked me to do the work. So when I showed up to pick up the box, he looked down his nose at me and basically said, well, why do you think you're going to be able to even handle doing bookkeeping? You're not a CPA, you're not very experienced. And I'd actually been doing bookkeeping for quite a few years. I wasn't planning on doing tax. But I think at that point I had a little bit of like, oh, am I really going to be able to do that? Can I live up to, someone else who's done it in the past who was a CPA? And I think at first I was a little worried, right? But then I had to realize, like, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this work since 1998. At this point, I believe it was like 2006 or 7, right? So I had multiple years,
Mhm.
but I think at one point we do get where we doubt ourselves,
Mhm.
right? So can you talk to the entrepreneur who maybe is going through that imposter syndrome, even too? They're comparing themselves to someone else, thinking I'm not good enough. What can they do maybe to even overcome those feelings?
Yeah. So this is a lot. This is a loaded question. And this is layers and layers deep. And I mean, we could go into this for hours. So, what I will say is that if you find yourself in a place where you are doubting yourself, you're doubting your abilities, comparing yourself to others, there's likely a disconnect with yourself.
Mm,
And so, how we can actually come back to our inherent worth and start showing up from that space is to reconnect those synapses and to come back to the truth of who we are. Because when we know who we are and we know our value and we know our worth, we show up from that place and we
mhm,
don't need to compare ourselves to others. We don't feel, that imposter syndrome and all of the other things that come along with that. So, this is really deep, important work that we do as business owners in
mhm,
every aspect. And you have to also be really connected, in my opinion, to the work that you're doing.
mhm,
We shift throughout our lifetimes too, and different work, has different meaning to us at different times in our lives. And so what I would also encourage is to look at the work that you're doing and does that connect to who you are now?
mm,
Is your business connected to your soul, to the truth of who you are? And so that's where some of that kind of imposter syndrome stuff can start coming up too. And you can be doubting yourself. There might be a disconnect in purpose as well.
mhm. So when you were talking, you said like reconnect the synapses, right?
Mhm.
So what do you do to actually take that step to do what you just said needs to happen so we can like overcome this imposter syndrome?
So this is the work.
Mm,
This is the work that I am working with specifically with women. And so I offer soul-led business coaching from this psychosynthesis container. And the work that we do goes into a lot. It's really in depth and I, can't speak to all of it here today because it would just like be too much.
mhm,
So a lot of the work that we're doing is going back and looking into, sure, our past,
mhm,
into our childhoods, into personalities that have been developed based off of traumas, based off of
mm,
experiences that now inform our decisions as adults. And perhaps are also limiting us.
mhm,
So this is just one of the things that we do is going back and looking into, the earlier years, the development, the growth, and what we learned to be true for us
mhm,
as adults. Because the truth is, it may not be
mhm.
true for us anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, we do change over time, right? And
Mhm.
what we did 20 years ago that we may still be doing now isn't necessarily what our passion is anymore. And so maybe that's part of where our challenges are in terms of being able to be that level that we want. But I also know years ago, it was maybe 10 years ago or so, I was in a program with a coach and like a mastermind. And so at one point, the coach had us read the book, The Big Leap.
Okay.
And it was talking about things that hold us back as well. And sometimes what holds us back is the fear of being more successful than our parents or like a sibling or something like that too. So I'd love for you to talk about that too, like in terms of, again, an entrepreneur who is wanting to be successful, yet maybe they have that as one of the things that is a block. Like, what can they do maybe to realize it's okay to be more successful than somebody else in your family?
Well, there's not going to be a magic wand that's
Mhm.
going to some phrase that you can just say to yourself that you're going to
Mhm.
get over it, and bust through to that success level you want to be at. A lot of what this comes back to is what we were just talking about, right? So what are the stories that you're telling yourself? So
Mhm.
this is what I would recommend where to start. Okay? So if you are having a specific, issue or concern, go to that place, sit with yourself and ask yourself, what are the stories that I'm telling myself?
Mhm.
So if this is a story of, success and not wanting to be, more successful than your brother or your sister or your family of origin, what are those stories that you grew up hearing,
Mhm.
specifically around money? This comes up a
Mhm.
lot with money, with women specifically.
Right.
Men have different stories around money, and I don't discount that. But because I specifically work with women, I can speak to that a little bit more.
Mhm.
And so, what are those stories that you're telling yourself around money and around success and what that means to be a successful, powerful woman? What
Mhm.
does that mean to you? When you were growing up, what did you hear about successful women?
Mhm.
What did you learn about women who had money or people who had money?
Mhm.
So, what are those stories that you've been told? And that would be the first place that, someone that's listening today could really go into and start kind of just doing that inward introspection to start,
Mhm.
uncovering what's coming up for them.
Right. I think that's true too, because you do hear a lot of times where people are looking at those who are successful and even judging them,
Mhm.
sometimes too, because, well, the rest of us are down here and well, they're there and they're not doing what they're doing to help others. They're doing it to help themselves. And, so I think there is a lot of times where there are those judgments and maybe you don't even realize you're putting that on yourself
Mhm.
and making those judgments. But in terms of money too, when you talked about that, one of the things I thought of as you were discussing that too is how a situation for a family could end up with two different perspectives about money too. So you could have where maybe your family didn't have a lot of money and you had to learn to save. So
Mhm.
you might be a saver as well, right? And you're looking at what's a good value and being very careful with your money, where another person could be like, well, I didn't have a lot growing up and I want to make sure I make a lot of money and I can buy whatever I want. And,
Yeah.
from the same family of origin, have two totally different perspectives on money too. So I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And, I was, I'll say, fortunate enough to experience both sides of that. And, growing up with a family who had very little, and my parents were divorced, growing up with a family that soon came into some wealth. And so, for someone who comes from a same family of origin, and maybe your brother has a different, way of dealing with money or
Mhm.
handling money and success, and then you learned a different way, we are all so unique,
Mhm.
and our individual experience, this, is so funny. We can have the same exact life experience happening, and we perceive it in a totally different way,
Mhm.
and we learn to live through that experience in completely different ways. And so, yes, we might have that same experience, but what we learn from it is so unique and so different. And this goes back to the judgment that
Mhm.
you were talking about. We as a society really come into judgment a lot, and all that is a lack of understanding.
Mhm.
And so, with this point that I'm sharing here, is if we can understand that we're all having a unique experience, and we might, come from the same family, and yet we deal with things very differently, we can take away that judgment, step into
Mhm.
understanding, and see that the same experience can be perceived in two completely different ways.
Right. So when you were talking earlier too about thinking through the stories and, being able to work through that to overcome these challenges, like, do you recommend if someone's even thinking like, well, I don't remember specifically why I feel the way I do about the situation, do you recommend somebody just sits down like quietly, close their eyes, thinks through and, then has a journal and just starts writing? Or like, how would they even start maybe to go back through things that maybe are now in their subconscious that they're not things that they constantly are thinking about and they don't even remember why they feel the way that they do? Like, what would you recommend in terms of them like starting the process even?
That's a great question. I think for everyone, it can look very different. And sure, journaling can be a beautiful tool to use to get those thoughts, those feelings, onto paper. So that's a beautiful, example of starting to work through what needs to come out and what's coming through for them. I am a huge proponent of meditation. I think that if you can start with a minute of presence with yourself every single day, just to come to your breath and allow yourself to breathe. It's so simple. And it also is so necessary for us to have awareness, because the key here is that awareness piece. And if someone is in a place where they don't have the awareness of what's going on, which is most people in the world,
right. Right.
we've really got to come to that place of awareness so that we can fully understand what it is that we're needing, wanting, and desiring in this moment. Right. So coming back to that place of meditation, yes, journaling is beautiful. Connecting with nature is also a really powerful way to start understanding ourselves a little bit more and understanding what it is that we need. So I would definitely start with one of those three things.
Yeah. Perfect. So if someone is listening to and they've actually maybe had a failure in business before, whether, now they're in another business, or maybe they're listening and they don't even, have a business now, but they saw the topic and they thought it would be interesting. But there are those who have had failures in the past and maybe are dealing with their frustration or, just how could I have let this happen? I'm not sure even how I got into that situation, whatever it was that brought about that failure. So can you touch on maybe what they can do to kind of work through that and realize like failure is a stepping stone, right, into something different. And it doesn't mean that everything is just over, right?
Yeah. So we've been told that failure means that you are a failure and that you completely failed. Failures are simply the start to something new. Okay, so failures as an ending are the start to something new. But here, and I hope you guys are going to hear this message very loud and clear. What did you learn? What did you learn from that experience? Because what you learned from, I don't even want to call it a failure because I just don't resonate with that term. And I think we need to start shifting away from the idea of failure as this negative connotation. But what did you learn from that? Because everything that we move through in life is happening for us. We may not want to see it that way in this moment, in this time, but eventually you will see that everything is happening for you, not to you. So that, business ending or that relationship ending, whatever it is, what did you learn from it? And what's important to you? So this can really be a looking glass into a magnifying glass into what I now know is really important to me.
Right.
What will I do differently? What will I shift? And keeping in mind that this is helping you into this version of you that you are becoming so that you can build the business you want to build, grow in the way you want to grow, because what you are learning and what you're taking from that past version, that past iteration is serving you. You learned so much from it. So I would have you focus in on those things, not on, the negative connotation of the failure, but what did I learn from this? What do I really want to do differently? What did I like that I can bring with me, and what can I let go of that's not going to serve me in this next iteration?
Yeah, I love that too, because I mean, like you said, there's all different perspectives on things too. And I remember one time in a business conference that I went to years and years ago, here was someone who was very successful, but he said he'd been divorced 3 times. So when I thought of that, I was like, to me, that's not success, right? I don't want to lose a marriage over a business, right? So what can I do to make sure that my business is still successful, but I can make sure that my marriage is also successful. So to me, having all of this money and his determination of success seemed to be based on money, right? And that growth of his business. Like, so I think we have to also just look at what are we using to define our success as well, right? And someone else's view of success may be totally different than our own, right? And we may be judging ourselves harshly when maybe we shouldn't be.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. Success, has this idea in our society, in our North American society, that it is tied to money, and money is your value and your worth. And what we can start to incorporate into our lives is what success means to us individually. One of the things that I love to do with my clients is walk them through this really fun exercise that I'll share with you guys real quickly today, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I would love for you to imagine, softly close your eyes or soften your gaze if that feels good. And just imagine your perfect day. Just, where are you waking up? What are your sheets like? Who are you laying next to? Are there kids running around or not? Are there animals? Envision that perfect day. What's the setting? Is it tropical? Are you in the mountains? And really play with this. Really go into this perfect day vision. Feel the feelings that come up for you as you envision this perfect day. Okay, so get really specific here, really detailed. What are you doing? How are you spending your day? Who are you spending it with? What are you doing for work? What are you doing for fun, for play? Who are you spending that day with? How does it end? So get as specific as you can in this exercise. Let your heart and your mind go wild with this. And then, open your eyes, come back to your body. That's your success right there.
So do you do that thinking like, this is what I want now? Is it in 10 years? Is it retirement? Or do you do this for multiple times in your life? Like, this is what I see as success now. This is what I see, what I want in 10 years. How do you do that?
So my whole thing is let's live now.
Okay.
We don't know that tomorrow is promised.
True.
And life is short. So why wait?
Right.
Let's live that life now. And so, yes, that, we limit ourselves by thinking, oh, I can't have this now. Yes, you absolutely can. So as you envision that, as you come up with your perfect day, come back to that perfect day every single day. And remember how to, I said, feel the feelings that are coming up for you. Feeling that feeling every single day will actually put you into a different state, a different vibration that will allow you to start attracting those things into your life. So be open to what comes up for you. Say yes to the opportunities that come up as challenges, right? And remember that life is happening for you, not to you. But that dream life, that perfect day, that success for you can happen tomorrow. And so one of the biggest things here too is to show up as that person that is in that ideal day. That success that we envision for ourselves. So what is that person doing? How are they spending their time? What words are they using? Who are they surrounding themselves? How are they investing into themselves, their business, their partnerships? Show up as that person right now, today, and watch your dream life come to you.
Nice. All right. So I just want to say that for those who are listening, I hope that you're finding this helpful. So we're coming to the end of the time that I have with you. So I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. So I offer both one-on-one coaching, which is a really intimate setting. It's really based off of that unique individual and what they're going through in their life at that time. And also group coaching, which is really beautiful and wonderful. Specifically, I work with women. So guys, sorry. I have people that I can send you to, but specifically working with women. And in the group coaching, it's a little bit more structured, and it's also really amazing because you are going to step into a container with women who are going where you want to go. And so as we do that, we start showing up as this next level version of ourselves and surrounding ourselves with women who are at that same level as us. So the group coaching is really fun, really, a potent container, and also a beautiful invitation to come into community.
Perfect. And if our listeners want to connect with you, how do you have them reach you?
You guys can reach out to me on Instagram. I will share my handle and also just say it out loud. It's at Marcy Dunphy _. Don't forget the underscore at the end. And my website is just my name, marcydunphy.com.
Perfect. And I definitely will put all that information in the show notes too. So if you're interested in following up with her, you'll be able to reach her easily. But this was good. I'm so glad that I had the chance to meet you and you were able to just sit down with me and we could just quickly chat off the top of our head, have a conversation and see where it goes. So thank you so much. And as for the listener, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation and that you can join us again on future episodes. And remember, you can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. My website is abandp.com. And please remember to like and subscribe so you'll know every time a podcast is uploaded. And if you would leave a review on your favorite platform, I'd really appreciate your support. So thanks so much and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to this episode. I hope you found the topic interesting and that it answered some questions about beyond the strategy box, the energetics that may be holding you back in business. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Marcy at any of the links that she shared or send us a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next topic. And please remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. You can find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? I'd really appreciate your support. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.